Alright, hey, what's up? This time around, I wanted to talk about the strongest attackers in the game. And when I say strongest attacker, I mean universally strongest attackers in the game, right? For example, the girl in the back, Flower of Justice Mothdat, is hella strong, however kinda restricted to World Boss mode. And I want to talk about attackers who can be used in any mode, hella efficiently and effectively. Let's look at this girl for a second, and the first one would be Fire Bathory. As most could have expected, obviously, she is just hella popular for a good reason, because she's just that strong. She's not only good looking, but she's also hella strong. And to find out why she's so strong, let's jump right into the skill set. Just ignore the auto attack damage. Who gives a fucking damn about that? Let's go straight into the tap. And starting off with a single tap ability with 3000 damage, which is not what's important here though. What is important is the ability she's getting granted through this tap. First of which is Battle Cry. This gives her an additional 35% damage buff, like attack buff, which is great in itself. And in her case, however, kind of situational used. You won't use the tap too much. The second part of the tap is a buff which grants 95%, which has a 95% chance of granting direct hit, which is what the skill is called, right? And it ignores Fortitude status. So Fortitude is, there is one child which has Fortitude, which is kind of relevant, and that is Syrinx, whatever you want to call her. That wooden healer, right? The angel girl. Or let's say she used to be relevant, right? She's not that relevant anymore. She used to be a huge pain in the ass in the first year of PvP in this game. Thank God she's off the board. So the second part of Courtesan Bathory's or Fire Bathory's tab is not that relevant, let's be honest. The first part is fine though. What is more important in her skill set, and what makes her excel so much, is her slide skill. 4600 damage to 2 enemies times 2. That is okay in itself. What's so special about this though is the ignore defense damage and the bonus damage on top of it, right? In these times where like Dana puts up a barrier and grants her whole team a 50% defense buff, which is just unheard of. You should never ever give a defensive unit that skill. 50% defense buff to all of your allies. That is just broken as hell. And the only reason why PvP meta has been so stale for such a long time. In times like those, you need this amount of damage to break through in some kind of way, right? You need additional damage, additional ignore defense damage and bonus damage. And this is what makes her so great. She has that and more. She has all of that in any mode whatsoever. These abilities are not restricted to, let's say, raids, let's say world boss or anything. All of this damage can be dealt in any mode: PvE, raids, world boss, and PvP, which is what makes her so great universally speaking. Going over to her drive skill, I will have to say from the get-go, drive skills for attackers are just not worth it, right? You will deal maybe around 3000 damage, considering Dana has her barrier up and the defense buff on the enemies, and 3000 damage for a whole drive skill is just not worth it. You have way better options instead. You can go with a Chang'e drive, right? To potentially stun up to 3 enemy units, which is hella broken in itself. Or you could, maybe you're running a Pomona, right? And you can use a drive to res up one of your fallen units, and many other options. There is way better utility in terms of drive skill usage in other, let's say, childs than attacker child. So just ignore the drive skill more or less. Let's go to the leader buff, which is actually pretty effective in certain cases, right? Slide skill final damage plus 15% for fire type allies, which is okay in itself. What's more important though is the second part, and it is restricted to PvP, right? Another 30% crit rate to herself. If you just run Fire Battery, just herself, without any like crit supporter, you will not want to use this leader buff. However, if you throw in a Pantheon into the mix, this leader skill can be hella useful, hella strong. Pantheon, keep in mind, with his slide, gives 70% crit rate boost, right? And she herself, with her leader skill, gives 30%. So if my mathematics are correct, and they're not always, 30% plus 70% gives you 100% crit rate boost. So every round you should land a crit, theoretically speaking. In reality, it doesn't always work, maybe for some debuff reasons or shit like that, I'm not 100% sure. But we are still talking about the strongest, or one of the strongest attackers in the game, having the ability to crit every single round. That is absolutely unheard of. That is crazy. That is crazy. Which is what makes her strong with many different combinations, right? Fire Battery on herself is pretty strong, but like with Isolde, for example, if you team her up with Isolde, she will have even more value. She will have even more value, right? Isolde applies like balloons onto enemy teams, and those balloons pop once you land 2 hits on those enemies. And because Fire Battery targets the same units as Isolde, the highest attack units, they will pop, those balloons will pop, and the enemy dodge will be reset, which gives you another additional speed advantage over the enemy, which is hella huge. Absolutely huge. Okay, haven't talked about Fire Battery. Hella strong unit, hella good looking, and I love her way of speaking actually. This old like Edo period kind of way of Japanese speaking. You gotta love it. She's trolling the master in this story over and over again with it as well, which I do adore. Next up, the second strongest, or where is she? The second of the strongest attackers in the game, Sniper Hitler. She is HRR exclusive. Keep that in mind, right? However, for a good reason, because she's hella strong. Ignore the auto damage. Once again, go into the tab. I will let's keep the tab for later actually, because her tab is what makes her so special and what differentiates her a lot from Fire Battery actually, because the slide is kind of similar on both units. You have chunks of damage to do different to two different enemies 2 times, including bonus damage and ignore defense damage. However, in her case, in Sniper Hitler's case, this ignore defense damage is restricted to PvP, which makes her more restricted overall, right? Which I will talk about later. However, in PvP, she excels incredibly. Tons of damage, to two enemies in a similar way, like Fire Battery, right? What makes her so special on her own though is her tap skill. That is a single tap damage skill, so the damage is not that important, 3000 damage roughly speaking. What's important are the next 2 points, and the first one of which is 90% chance to ground ranged attack. Okay, ranged attack makes you ignore taunt as well as reflect. And keep in mind, two of the strongest defensive units in the game right now, especially in PvP, are Athena and Hades, both of which can grant reflect and taunt, both of which can be a pain in the ass, or will be a pain in the ass 90% of the time. There is not many ways to deal with a comp consisting of Dana, Athena, and Hades. It is just hella hard to get through that wall, that defensive wall. And Sniper Hitler is one of the, if not the only consistent possibility to do so. If you tap with her first, you will be able to avoid taunt as well as reflect with a 90% chance to hit. And that is a great amount actually. That is pretty reliable and consistent. Secondly, on her tap though, which is also pretty important, exclusive to PvP, 90% chance to ground focus, which gives you accuracy up, which is cool and great. More importantly though, it also gives you a guaranteed crit on the next hit. And this is what divides her or differentiates her from Fire Battery, right? In order to land consistent crits with Fire Battery, you will need a Pantheon, right? However, Sniper Hitler, is way more self-sufficient in that sense. You will have to tap and have a 90% chance to get that guaranteed crit on the next hit, and that is awesome. That is hella awesome. So what you want to do with Sniper Hitler is tap, slide, tap, slide, tap, slide, tap, slide, tap, slide, and so on, right? That is the general order you want to follow. Unless maybe you have a Pantheon in your comp, then you don't need to tap, but that is kind of rare, right? Running Pantheon alongside Sniper Hitler. So compared to Fire Battery, she is more self-sufficient, and her slide is however kind of similar, right? Similar amount of damage if you add up all of those values. And she can deal with comps, with the most defensive comps in the game: Dana, Hades, and Athena. The only other way to deal with those disgusting comps is running the same shit, or maybe trying to rely on debuffs landing, like going in with Moa or Isolde and stuff like that, right? Or Limosh, the donut girl. You can try to run her and stun the hell out of the enemies. However, Sniper Hitler is also a great choice to go against comps like those. Ignoring her drive skill again, because once again, drive skills with attackers, not worth it. Going right into the leader buff. The first part is kind of the same, is kind of irrelevant, because drive skills in general are irrelevant for attackers. Like flat out damage from drive skills is just not worth it. The second part, however, is kind of cool and solid. 10% jaw charge amount for all of your allies is a nice speed boost. If you have nothing better on the team, might as well use that. But most of the time you will have a wood battery or something like that as leader, right, to mitigate incoming DOT damage. So those are fine. What this girl excels at though is her tap and slide combined, right? So you wanna tap slide with her, and you wanna most of the time only slide with Fire Battery. Yeah, most of the time slide with her. And if you have huge threats on enemy side, like a mirror matchup, a Fire Battery on the enemy side, you want to tap first and then slide to guarantee that insta kill on the enemy battery, so you don't get threat first. Alright. So there are other units like these two with chunks of damage, ignore defense damage and stuff like that. For example, we have Nicole, right? Who used to be great for a certain amount of time, some months ago, let's say, when Fire Battery was not released yet. Because she has been released, Nicole has gotten more and more irrelevant. There's one good reason for that, and it is the elemental advantage. Let's be honest, elemental advantage in this game is just that huge. It is just hella huge. Nicole dropped because of that. In a face up between these two, Nicole wouldn't stand a single chance. She will get shred instantly. That's why most people don't even waste their time anymore using Nicole. Let's be honest. Talking about the health of PvP though, it would be so awesome if we could get more attackers like these two I just mentioned, right? Like Fire Battery and like Sniper Hitler. Huge chunks of damage, ignore defense damage, and even more bonus damage on top of it. Imagine if we could get like an attacker like this with Dark Element. Because if we could get that, a certain OP tank unit could be, let's say, we could manage to make her less oppressive, right? Dana and her defensive skill set, her slide skill, which gives 50%, once again 50% defense buff to all of your units, which is just hella broken. You could work around it if we could get an attacker like Fire Battery or Sniper Hitler with Dark Element, because that additional chunk of elemental damage would enable you to even shred through a wall like Dana's and instantly kill her. I believe in that. And on top of Dana, we have another disgustingly strong defensive unit in PvP, and that is Neptune, right? Also light unit. Both of those could be dealt with way more effectively if, like, we could get more diversity in terms of elements for attackers. It will make the whole PvP meta more healthy in general, let's be honest. We have something similar with Flower of Justice Moth that I mentioned already. You can make her actually work against like most fire units in PvP right now, right? Some of the strongest PvP units right now are fire. We have Limosh, the Donut Girl. We have Fire Battery, as I already mentioned. And we have Hades, for example. Fire Mafia, like with or without crit buff, would shred through those. You can make it work. However, she is kind of restricted to only dealing ignore defense damage to fire units, right? Otherwise, she will be on the same level as Fire Battery and Sniper Hitler in terms of usage for other modes than a World Boss. Right now, she excels most in World Boss, obviously. Alright. That is it for these two. Fire Battery gains the edge overall right now, just because she has elemental advantage over some of the best meta units, which are Wood Battery, right? Which are Newbie Mona, which can be the new Wood Sentry, and some more. Nicole also, though she's less used lately. And Sniper Hitler, while on paper I consider her stronger, just doesn't have the circumstances enabling her as much as Fire Bathory is enabled right now. That is the only reason why she falls off just by a tiny bit. However, if you have either of those, invest into them. They are future proof and definitely worth it. She is hella strong, honestly. And not only around the hips in general. Thanks for watching.